The laughter of the pups echoed through the training ground like tiny daggers. "Look at her," one of them shouted, pointing at Eva as she stumbled over a wooden log. "You can't even shift, Eva. You're worse than a pup." Their voices rose higher, cruel, mocking, sharp. Eva forced herself to keep walking, her bare feet pressing into the cold dirt, her eyes fixed on nothing. She wanted to believe their words didn't hurt, but each one tore into her chest like claws. The air smelled of dust and sweat, but underneath it was something heavier: shame. "Don't bother training her," another sneered. Even the moon gave up on her. The older wolves chuckled. No one stopped them. No one ever did. Eva had learned long ago that pity was rarer than mercy in her pack. Her trembling fingers brushed the scars along her arm, faint reminders of every punishment, every failed shift, every time Alpha Kyle made an example of her. "You shouldn't have been born," he had once told her, his voice cold and certain. "You're cursed beyond words." Those words haunted her more than the full moon ever could. That night, when the sun sank behind the hills, painting the world in gold and sorrow, Eva walked alone into the forest. The laughter of the pack faded behind her, replaced by the whisper of leaves and the beat of her heart. She walked until her legs gave way, until the wind stung her eyes with tears she didn't want to shed. The cliff stood before her, the same one she had once watched others dive from in joy after their first shift. But for her, it was an ending. She looked down at the river below, dark and restless. "This world doesn't need me," she whispered. "No one will even notice I'm gone." Her voice broke, carried away by the night breeze. She stepped forward and let herself fall. But before the air could claim her, a strong arm caught her mid-fall. Her body collided with warmth, and a deep, unfamiliar voice said, low and steady, "Easy. You don't get to end your story like this." Eva gasped, her eyes flying open. Moonlight spilled across the stranger's face. Tall, broad-shouldered, eyes glowing faintly gold. He looked like the night itself had shaped him. Why did you stop me?" she stammered, her tears spilling freely. The man's gaze softened, his voice almost a whisper. "Because you're not meant to die, little wolf," he said. "You're meant to begin again." Her breath hitched. He held her for a long moment before he spoke again, words that sounded almost impossible. "Will you be my mate?" Eva blinked. "What?" The wind stilled, as if the world itself was waiting. He met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "You were ready to die, Eva, so tell me." He leaned closer, voice barely a whisper. "Would it hurt to try living, even just once, as mine?" Her lips parted, but no words came. The tears that had dried moments ago threatened to fall again, but for a different reason. Who was this man? Why did he know her name? And why did his eyes, so full of sorrow, feel like home? The night that had begun with despair had just taken a turn she could never have imagined. The silence stretched between them, thick and haunting, as Eva stared at the man who had stopped her from dying. His golden eyes glowed faintly in the pale light, reflecting both power and pain. For a long while, neither of them spoke. Only the wind moved, whispering through the tall grass around them. Finally, Eva found her voice. "You don't know what you're saying," she said shakily, her heart pounding. "You don't even know who I am. You don't know how worthless I am." The stranger tilted his head slightly as though her words pained him. "Worthless," he repeated softly. "No soul is born worthless, Eva." Eva's throat tightened. "Don't talk like that," she said, turning away. "You don't understand what I've lived through. I've been mocked all my life. Even pups stronger than me throw stones and laugh. I can't shift. I can't fight. I can't even belong. My parents left me. My alpha despises me. And every time I breathe, I'm reminded that I shouldn't have been born." Her voice broke at the end, the words tumbling out like shattered glass. The man stepped closer, but not too close, just enough for his presence to wrap around her like warmth in winter. "Then perhaps we're both broken," he said quietly. Ava blinked and turned to him. "What do you mean?" His gaze fell to the ground for a moment, as though the memories were heavy. "I've lost things too. People I loved. I know what it means to be alone." His words sank deep into her, hitting a place she had long buried. He wasn't pitying her. He understood her. That frightened her even more. "You speak like you've known me forever," she whispered. "Perhaps I've known your kind of pain forever," he replied softly. For a moment, Eva forgot to breathe. The world around them had quieted. Even the night creatures seemed to listen. She shook her head finally, wiping her tears roughly. "You shouldn't waste your time on me. I'm not who you think I am. I'm weak, I'm broken, and I have nothing to give." But the man only smiled, a sad but steady smile. "You have more strength than you realize. You just can't see it yet." "Stop lying to me," she said bitterly. "Everyone says that until I disappoint them." He stepped closer again, his eyes burning softly in the moonlight. "Be my mate," he repeated slower this time. "Let me show you what you are capable of." Her heart thudded painfully. You're insane," she stammered. "Why would you want someone like me? I have nothing." "Because I see something in you," he interrupted, his voice deepening. "Something worth saving." She shook her head again, stepping back. "Why must I be your mate, for you to show me whatever you claim I have? Why can't you just show me?" He hesitated for a second, then looked at her with a seriousness that made her breath hitch. "Because," he said slowly, "I wouldn't want another to take you from me." The words hit her harder than she expected. Her heart skipped a beat and her knees weakened. No one had ever wanted her, not even as a friend, not even as a pack member. Yet here was this stranger, speaking like she was something precious. Her lips parted, but she couldn't speak. Finally, she took a slow breath. If I agree," she whispered. "What's the name of the stranger I will be mated to?" For a heartbeat, the man said nothing. Then he reached out gently, brushing his thumb against the side of her hand, not to claim, but to reassure. "My name is Lucian," he said. The sound of it carried power. It lingered in the air between them, soft yet commanding. Eva repeated it under her breath, as if testing its weight. "Lucian." He nodded once, and then the night changed. The moon rose fully above them, spilling silver light across the clearing. Lucian stepped closer, his presence warm but careful, like a promise. "The moon witnesses all bonds," he murmured. "And if you let me, it will witness ours." Eva's heart pounded in her chest. Everything inside her screamed to run, yet something deeper held her still. She didn't know what drew her in. Maybe it was his voice, or the sorrow in his eyes, or the faint tremor in her own soul that longed to belong to something. When Lucian reached out and placed his lips gently at the side of her neck, she didn't flinch. Instead, her breath caught. "Close your eyes," he whispered. She obeyed, trembling as warmth spread through her, not burning but glowing, like sunlight sinking into her skin. The mark formed slowly, an ancient seal glowing faintly before fading into her flesh. She reached for his neck and marked him too. The air between them pulsed with quiet energy. Eva touched her neck, still feeling the faint warmth of the mark. For the first time in her life, her heartbeat didn't feel like an echo in an empty cave. Lucian held out his hand to her. "Come with me," he said softly. "You've lived in pain long enough. Let me show you another way." Something in his tone, that steady calm, made her reach for him without thinking. His hand was warm, strong, and sure. Together they walked away from the cliff, their shadows stretching behind them under the moonlight. They moved through the forest in silence, until a small cottage appeared at the edge of the woods. Smoke curled from its chimney, faintly glowing in the darkness. "This is my home," Lucian said quietly. "It's not much, but it's safe." Eva's eyes softened. After years of sleeping on cold floors and empty barns, even the humble cottage felt like a palace. Lucian opened the door, letting her in first. The air smelled faintly of herbs and wood smoke. A small fire burned in the hearth, and there was a simple bed in the corner. He handed her a wooden bowl filled with warm broth and bread. The smell alone made her chest tighten. No one had ever offered her food before, not out of kindness. She took it with both hands, whispering, "Thank you." Lucian nodded once, sitting across from her. "You need not thank me," he said. "Eat." Eva hesitated. "You're not eating?" "I will," he said with a faint smile. "After you've had enough." She lowered her gaze, unsure how to respond. His words were simple, but they made her heart ache in ways she didn't understand. So she ate in silence, the crackle of the fire filling the room. Each bite felt heavier than the last, not because she was full, but because she wasn't used to being cared for. When she finished, Lucian quietly took her bowl and set it aside. "There's a bed by the wall," he said softly. "You should rest. You've carried too much sorrow for one night." She hesitated, searching his face for hidden motives, but there were none. His eyes held the same calm strength that had kept her from falling. "Where will you sleep?" she asked. "Here," he said, nodding toward the far corner of the room. Eva frowned. "You don't have to." He raised a hand, gently stopping her. "Rest, Eva." And for reasons she couldn't explain, she obeyed. When she lay down, the bed creaked softly beneath her. The scent of pine and earth surrounded her, and her body relaxed for the first time in years. She listened to the quiet sounds, the wind outside, the steady rhythm of Lucian's breathing from across the room. Her eyelids grew heavy, and before she knew it, sleep claimed her. Morning came gently, with sunlight spilling through the small window and birds calling from the trees. Eva stirred, blinking against the light. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she saw Lucian sitting by the door, sharpening a blade. His movements slow, precise. "You're awake," he said, glancing up. She sat up quickly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sleep so long." He smiled faintly. "You needed it." He stood then, sliding the blade into its sheath. "Come," he said. "There's something I must show you." Outside, the forest glowed under morning light. Mist drifted through the trees, and the air was cool and clean. Lucian stopped in a small clearing not far from the cottage. "Here," he said, turning to her. "This is where you will begin." Eva frowned, confused. "Begin what?" He met her gaze steadily. "Your training." "My training?" she repeated, startled. "For what? I told you I'm weak, I can't." Lucian shook his head slowly. "Your weakness will no longer define you," he said firmly. "The bond between us flows through you now. You carry my strength within you." Eva's heart raced. He continued, "Even if you haven't shifted, it lives inside you. You were not meant to be helpless, Eva. You were meant to awaken." The word awaken echoed in her mind. Lucian stepped back and motioned to the clearing. "We start with movement. Your body must learn balance before it can learn strength." He began to run, smooth and fast, his feet barely touching the ground. The way he moved was mesmerizing. Even the wind seemed to bend for him. Eva tried to follow, her heart pounding as her legs protested. She stumbled twice, nearly fell once, but Lucian was always close, his hand ready to steady her without a word. When she collapsed into the grass, panting and trembling, he crouched beside her. "You did well," he said quietly. I barely kept up," she gasped. He smiled. "And yet you did. That's more than you could before." Eva blinked, realizing he was right. Her body was tired, yes, but it wasn't breaking. Her lungs burned, but they didn't fail her. Something inside her had changed. Lucian stood and extended his hand. "Again," he said. She groaned softly but took his hand. They ran once more, her strides growing longer, her movements steadier. By the time they stopped, the sun was high and her heart was thundering. She collapsed again, this time laughing breathlessly. Lucian looked down at her, his lips curving in quiet amusement. "You laugh," he said. "That's good." Eva blinked up at him. "I didn't know I still could." His eyes softened. "You'll learn many things about yourself, Eva." For the first time, she believed him. As they walked back to the cottage, she noticed how the sunlight played across the trees, how the air smelled different, fresher, sharper. It was as if her senses had sharpened overnight. That night, after they shared a simple meal, Eva sat by the fire while Lucian sharpened his blade again. "Lucian," she said softly. "Yes? When you said your bond flows through me, does that mean I'm stronger now because of you?" He looked up, his silver eyes catching the firelight. "You're stronger because of you," he said. "I only lit the spark." She smiled faintly, her heart warming. For the first time, she began to believe she might be more than what her pack said she was. As the flames flickered, Lucian looked at her quietly, the corner of his mouth curving ever so slightly. "Tomorrow," he said, "we'll begin again." And Eva, sitting beneath the soft glow of the fire, felt something she had never felt before: hope. As days turned into weeks, the weak Omega began to move differently. She ran faster, her lungs burning with effort, but no longer collapsing after a few steps. She could lift small weights, hold her balance longer, and even sense the faint flicker of power deep within her. Something dormant, waiting. At night, after long hours of training, they would sit by the small fire outside the cottage. The moonlight spilled through the trees, silvering Lucius's hair as he stared into the flames. Eva often found herself watching him in silence, wondering who he really was. He spoke little of himself, only listening as she shared bits of her past. "I used to dream," she told him one night, hugging her knees to her chest. "When I was younger, I thought maybe if I prayed hard enough, I'd wake up and finally shift. But every year came and went, and I stayed the same. Everyone gave up on me, even my parents." Lucius's expression softened. He turned to her, his amber eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. "They didn't give up because you were weak," he said. "They gave up because they were blind. Power doesn't always roar, Eva. Sometimes it whispers, waiting for the right heart to hear it." Her throat tightened. "And you think I can hear it?" "I don't think," he said, leaning closer. "I know." From that night on, something changed between them. The air carried a quiet tension, one neither dared to speak of. When their hands brushed during training, she felt sparks under her skin. When he corrected her stance, his touch lingered just a moment too long. They both pretended not to notice, but the bond between them pulsed stronger each day, a soft hum at the back of their minds that whispered of something deeper. One afternoon during sparring, Eva surprised him. She ducked under his strike, pivoted, and swept his legs in one clean motion. Lucius hit the ground with a grunt, blinking up at her in disbelief. She froze, eyes wide. I didn't mean..." But he laughed, a real, full laugh. The sound was warm and rough, and it made her heart skip. "You finally stopped holding back," he said, rising to his feet. "That's what I wanted." Eva blushed, biting her lip. "Maybe you just got lazy." His smile deepened, a teasing spark in his eyes. "Careful, little Omega. You're growing bold." "Maybe I am," she said quietly, meeting his gaze. For the first time, she didn't look away. The moment stretched, heavy, electric. His hand brushed her cheek just once, a fleeting touch that sent warmth spiraling through her chest. But then he stepped back, his expression hardening as if fighting himself. Eva watched him go, confusion stirring in her heart. She could feel his emotions through their bond: longing, restraint, and something darker beneath. That night, she lay awake long after the fire died, her hand tracing the faint mark on her neck, the mark that bound them. It glowed faintly whenever she thought of him. Days later, she finally found her voice. "Lucius," she asked during their morning run, "why did you really choose me? You could have mated with anyone stronger, faster." He stopped running, turning to her with quiet intensity. "Because strength doesn't interest me," he said. "What you carry is rarer, a heart that survived what should have broken it." She swallowed hard, her chest tightening. He stepped closer, his voice low. "And because," he added, brushing his fingers against her wrist, "I don't want anyone else to see what I see in you." The forest seemed to go silent. The bond between them pulsed once, deep and alive, and she knew, in that breathless moment, that whatever this was between them was no accident. It was fated. That night, when she closed her eyes, she didn't dream of falling anymore. She dreamed of running side by side with him, free under the moonlight. The night air was still and heavy, carrying the scent of rain and pine through the clearing. The full moon hung high above, bright and round like a silent watcher. Ava stood barefoot on the soft earth, her heart thundering in her chest. Tonight was the night Lucius said she would try again, the night she had both longed for and feared for as long as she could remember. Her palms were clammy, and her throat was dry. Every muscle in her body trembled, not from weakness this time, but from fear. The fear of failing again, the fear of proving everyone right. She looked at Lucius, who stood a few feet away, calm as always. His golden eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, steady and reassuring. His expression was unreadable, but his voice, soft, deep, certain, broke through the stillness. "You're ready, Ava." Her chest tightened. I've heard that before," she whispered, looking down. "They all said I was ready. The elders, the trainers, but nothing ever happened. I tried until my body broke, until my heart broke." Lucius stepped closer. "And did they ever tell you to trust yourself?" She frowned, shaking her head. "They told you to push, to force it," he said, his tone calm but firm. "But the wolf isn't something you command, it's something you awaken. You can't fight your wolf into existence, Ava. You have to listen to her." His words settled into her like a heartbeat, deep and sure. He stretched out his hand, palm open. "You're not alone this time. You have me." Her fingers trembled as she took his hand. The warmth of his skin grounded her, and their bond pulsed faintly between them, a rhythm she could feel in her soul. He guided her to the center of the clearing. The moonlight pooled around her feet like silver water. Lucius stepped back slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. "Close your eyes," he said. Eva obeyed, drawing a shaky breath. "Now listen. Not to me, not to the world. Listen to what's inside you, to the heartbeat that isn't quite human, to the wild thing that's been waiting for you to stop being afraid." His voice was low, steady, like the wind whispering through leaves. "Let her out, Ava. She's been waiting too long." She exhaled shakily. Memories flooded her mind. Every insult, every shove, every cruel laugh. Weak, broken, useless. Her parents' disappointed faces, the elders' pity, the pups who mocked her when she couldn't shift during the moon ceremonies. Tears gathered in her eyes. "What if I can't?" she whispered. Lucius's voice grew softer. "Then you try again, and I'll be here each time until you do." Something in her chest cracked open. For once, she wasn't trying for them. She was trying for herself. Her breath deepened. The bond between her and Lucius pulsed stronger now, hot, alive. The air around her seemed to tremble. Her skin prickled and her heartbeat quickened. Then, deep inside, something stirred. It was faint at first, like the flutter of wings in darkness. Then it grew, stronger, louder, like the roar of something ancient and wild. She gasped, clutching her chest as warmth spread through her veins, spreading like liquid fire. Lucius didn't move. "That's it," he said softly. "Don't fight it." Her body bent forward as a surge of energy burst through her. The world blurred. The air shimmered. Bones shifted, skin stretched, and a strange sound, half scream, half howl, tore from her lips. Pain lanced through her for a heartbeat, then vanished. When the light faded, she was no longer on 2 feet. She stood on 4 strong legs, her fur shimmering silver under the moonlight. The wind brushed through her coat, cool and freeing. For a moment, Ava didn't believe it. She looked down. Paws. She moved them. They obeyed. Her tail flicked, her ears twitched. And then, with a trembling breath, she lifted her head toward the sky. A howl ripped from her throat. Pure, wild, beautiful. It echoed through the forest, a sound of freedom that carried years of buried pain and newfound strength. Lucius watched in silence, pride softening his face. Then slowly, he began to shift too. His body glowed faintly, muscles rippling as dark fur spread across his skin. When the transformation was complete, a massive black wolf stood where he had been, eyes of molten gold watching her. Eva's silver eyes met his. For a heartbeat, everything else vanished. The world, the pain, the past. There was only them. He took a step toward her, and she felt it. Their bond thrumming through her bones, their wolves recognizing each other fully for the first time. She felt his joy, his pride, and something else. Something deeper that made her heart flutter even in her wolf form. He brushed his muzzle against hers in silent affection, then darted away through the trees. Without thinking, she chased him. They ran together, side by side, through the glowing forest. The wind rushed past, the moon guiding their path. Every stride felt like flight, every breath tasted like freedom. The earth beneath her paws was soft, alive, welcoming. Lucius moved effortlessly, his black fur blending with the shadows, his movements graceful and sure. Eva followed him easily now, matching his pace. She felt power singing in her veins, the strength she had long been denied. When they reached the ridge overlooking the valley, Lucius stopped. The 2 wolves stood there bathed in moonlight, the world spread out before them. Eva turned to him, her silver coat glinting. He met her gaze, and their bond pulsed once. A heartbeat shared between souls. He leaned close, brushing his head against hers. A gentle breeze swept past them, carrying the scent of pine and rain and something sweet. Hope. Eva lifted her muzzle again and howled once more, louder, stronger, freer. This time Lucius howled with her. 2 voices, one dark, one light, rose together under the moon, echoing through the forest. It was not just a song of wolves. It was a promise. The night was drenched in silver light, the forest whispering softly around them. The moon hung high above, silent and watchful, a witness to the miracle that had just unfolded. Ava stood trembling in the clearing, her body still humming with the power of her first shift. Her breath came in uneven bursts, a mix of disbelief and wonder. The feel of the earth beneath her bare feet, the cool wind brushing her skin. It all felt new, alive, and free. Lucius shifted beside her, his tall frame glistening in the moonlight. His black hair clung to his face, his eyes burning with pride and tenderness. For a long moment they simply stared at each other. 2 souls who had found each other on the edge of ruin. "You did it," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Ava's lips quivered. I didn't think I ever could." He stepped closer, his hand reaching to cup her cheek. "You've always had the strength, Ava. You just needed to believe in it." At his touch, the dam inside her broke. All the pain, the years of rejection and self-hate, the loneliness that had been her only companion, it poured out in silent tears. She pressed her forehead against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her skin. Lucius held her tightly, one hand in her hair, the other at her back, grounding her. The warmth of his touch calmed her trembling, and the rhythm of his heartbeat became her anchor. When she finally lifted her gaze, her tears sparkled under the moonlight. Lucius brushed one away with his thumb, his eyes soft but fierce with emotion. Without thinking, Eva leaned forward and kissed him. It was a small, trembling kiss at first, but when he responded, the world around them seemed to fade. His lips were warm, his breath deep and unhurried, his touch careful as if she were something precious. For the first time, Eva didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. Lucius deepened the kiss, his hand tracing the curve of her face before sliding to the back of her neck, pulling her closer. The connection between them pulsed through the bond they shared. Fire and tenderness mingled in every heartbeat. When they finally pulled apart, Eva's breath came in soft gasps. "Lucius," she whispered, voice shaking. He rested his forehead against hers. "You've given me something I never thought I'd find again." "What's that?" she asked, her heart fluttering. "Hope." The single word shattered her completely. Tears returned, but this time they weren't of sorrow. They were pure, unfiltered joy. Lucius lifted her gently into his arms. She didn't resist. She didn't want to. As he carried her toward the cottage, the forest around them glowed faintly, their bond radiating through the air like a quiet blessing. Inside the small wooden cottage, the firelight flickered softly. Shadows danced across the walls as Lucius set her down, his fingers brushing over her skin with reverence. The air between them was heavy with emotion, not just desire, but gratitude, connection, and something neither of them could name. He traced a strand of her hair, tucking it behind her ear. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," he said gently. "I'm not," she whispered. "Not with you." Their lips met again, this time slower, deeper. The kiss spoke of all they had endured, all they had lost, and all they were beginning to find in each other. Every movement was filled with meaning, every breath, every touch, every glance. Eva felt the warmth of the bond rise within her like light spreading through darkness. She could feel his emotions, calm, fierce, protective, wrapping around her like a promise. Their closeness was a language of its own. It wasn't about hunger or conquest, but surrender. Two broken hearts finding wholeness in the other. As the night deepened, the firelight dimmed, and the moon bathed the cottage in silver glow. Lucius held Eva close, tracing circles on her back as she lay against him. Their breaths mingled, their hearts beat in rhythm. It wasn't just love. It was healing. Eva's voice was soft, barely a whisper. "You gave me a reason to live." Lucius smiled against her hair, his hand tightening gently around hers. "And you," he murmured, "gave me a reason to trust and believe again." Silence followed, the kind that needed no words, only the gentle sound of the fire and the quiet song of the night beyond the walls. Under that moonlit roof, where despair had once lived, something new was born, a love fierce enough to challenge fate itself. The morning sun broke through the trees like a promise, spilling golden light across the forest path as Eva walked. Her steps were steady, her heart calm. Gone was the girl who once trembled under cruel words and biting laughter. What walked toward the pack grounds now was something else, a woman forged in quiet fire, carrying the strength of her bond and the pride of her new self. Lucius had watched her prepare in silence that morning. "You don't need to prove anything to them," he had said, his voice low and gentle. Eva smiled faintly. "I know, but sometimes the world needs to see what it refused to believe." Now she stood at the edge of the clearing, the same place where she had once been humiliated, shoved and spat upon. Laughter and chatter filled the air. Pups chased each other. Warriors boasted of their hunts. None of them noticed her at first. Then one of the women gasped. "Is that?" Heads turned. Conversations died. The laughter came next. Sharp and cruel, just as before. "Well, look who decided to crawl back," a hunter sneered. The weak Omega still lives. Another chuckled. Maybe she came to beg the Alpha's forgiveness. More joined in, their mockery ringing through the clearing like a chorus of ghosts from her past. Eva didn't flinch. She walked to the center of the clearing, her silver hair glinting in the sun, her chin lifted in quiet defiance. Her eyes, once dull and tired, now gleamed like molten silver. "I'm so hurt," she said dryly, her lips curling into a faint, mocking smile. "Truly, your words wound me deeply." Her sarcasm hung in the air, and for a moment, the pack fell silent, unsure if they had heard her right. Then she raised her voice, clear and strong. "The best among you should come and test your strength against me." A murmur swept through the crowd. "She's mad. She must have lost her mind. Eva challenging us? She can barely lift a stick." The laughter resumed, harsher this time, but Eva didn't move. Her calmness unnerved them more than anger would have. "Anyone?" she said softly, her tone laced with challenge. "No? Then perhaps you're afraid the weak Omega might hurt your pride." Gasps echoed. A pair of guards stepped forward, faces twisted with anger. "You've insulted the Alpha by even setting foot here," one spat. "You'll learn your place soon enough." They lunged at her, strong, fast, the way trained warriors should be. But Eva didn't even blink. Her movements were fluid, effortless. She dodged the first guard's swing, twisted his wrist and sent him crashing to the ground with a single flick of her arm. The second guard charged. She sidestepped, caught his collar, and flipped him over her shoulder. Both men hit the dirt before anyone even realized what had happened. Gasps broke through the crowd. Pups froze mid-play. The laughter died like a flame snuffed out by the wind. Eva stood in the center, dusting her hands calmly as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Her eyes swept across the clearing, her voice cool. "Two of your best can't even make me flinch," she said. "Perhaps the Alpha has taught you all to bark louder than you bite." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Disbelief, awe, fear. No one had ever seen her move like that. No one had ever heard her speak with such confidence. For the first time in her life, all eyes were on her. Not in mockery, but in shock. The air trembled as Eva sat before Alpha Kyle's table, her fingers steady as she tore into the roasted meat. The scent of spice and smoke filled the clearing. Every gaze was on her, the once worthless Omega, now seated where no one dared sit. "Is the food poisoned?" she asked mockingly, chewing slowly. "Or is it that only kings are allowed to eat the best?" The murmurs grew. Shock rippled through the crowd like a wave. No one had ever spoken that way, let alone eat from Alpha Kyle's table, not even the strongest warriors. "Get her away from there," one of the beta guards roared. Two guards rushed forward, claws extended. Eva didn't rise. She didn't even drop the goblet in her hand. The first guard lunged, but before he could touch her, Eva moved, a blur of motion. She grabbed his wrist, twisted, and sent him crashing to the ground with a sound that silenced the clearing. The second guard hesitated, then charged again, growling. But Eva stepped aside and kicked, sending him flying into a wooden post. The impact cracked the timber clean in two. Gasps echoed through the clearing. No one could believe what they were seeing. "That's impossible," someone whispered. "She couldn't even fight a pup last winter." Eva turned slowly to face them, her hair falling over her shoulder, her voice calm. "You called me weak. You called me cursed. Now tell me, do I still look cursed to you?" The crowd fell silent, staring at her. The girl they once spat at, now standing tall in confidence that burned brighter than fire. And then, the crowd split apart. Alpha Kyle stepped forward. His presence was heavy, his aura filling the clearing like a storm cloud. His golden eyes glowed with fury. Every step he took made the ground seem to tremble beneath him. "Eva," he said, his voice like thunder, "you dare sit at my table, eat my food, and mock my pack?" Eva smiled faintly. "Why not? I fought hunger long enough to earn my place at any table." "Enough," he roared, slamming his fist against the wooden bench. "You've gone mad. I should end you where you stand. Then do it, Eva said simply. Show them the kind of alpha you are, the strong and mighty who derives joy in humiliating the weak. The crowd gasped again. Even the betas looked uneasy. Kyle's wolf growled beneath his skin. You want to fight me, Omega? You'll die like the rest of your kind. Maybe, Eva said softly, her silver eyes glowing brighter. Or maybe I'll make you kneel before one. The challenge hung in the air like lightning before a storm. Without another word, Alpha Kyle shifted. His massive wolf exploded from his body, brown fur gleaming like oil, eyes burning gold. The ground cracked beneath his paws. He was twice her size, a monster of muscle and rage. But Eva didn't flinch. Her body shimmered, silver light swirling around her as her wolf emerged. Graceful, radiant. The crowd stumbled back, awed and terrified. Kyle lunged first, fast, deadly, unstoppable. Eva dodged, light as wind. His claws sliced through air where she had just been. She leapt over him, her paws landing softly behind his back, and she spun, her fangs catching his shoulder. Kyle howled in pain. He turned, snapping his jaws, but she was already gone again, moving like light, every movement precise, every strike deliberate. Kyle lunged again, slamming her into the ground. Dust and leaves swirled around them. He pinned her down, his teeth inches from her neck. But before he could bite, Eva's wolf twisted beneath him, graceful as water. She pushed off with her hind legs, flipped, and slammed him backward with a force that shook the earth. The crowd screamed and scattered. Warriors froze in disbelief. Eva didn't stop. She charged, glowing silver, and leapt, her claws slashing across his chest. Blood sprayed into the dirt. Kyle staggered, growling in disbelief, but Eva pressed on, her fury rising with every breath. The mighty Alpha, the wolf who made grown men bow, fell to his knees. His golden eyes dimmed with exhaustion. His growls turned to weak snarls. He swung one last desperate strike, but Eva caught his paw midair and pushed him down into the dust. She stepped back, shifting slowly into human form, her black hair catching the moonlight, her skin glowing faintly from the energy of the fight. The crowd fell to their knees, not out of loyalty, but out of awe. Alpha Kyle shifted back too, panting, his body broken, pride shattered. He looked up at her, at the Omega he once cast aside, and saw something greater than power. Eva turned to the crowd, lifting her chin. This is not about revenge, it's about truth. No one is born weak. You made me believe I was nothing. But today, she glanced down at Kyle. You've all seen what nothing can become. No one spoke, not even the elders. Then slowly she turned and walked away. The moon followed her like a crown, silver and pure. Behind her, the once proud Alpha sat in the dirt, defeated, humbled before the very Omega he had despised. The forest was still that night. Moonlight poured through the trees in silver sheets as Eva walked along the familiar path toward Lucius's cottage. Her heart was light for the first time in years. Every step she took echoed with pride and peace. She had faced her fears, faced her pack, and finally proved herself. The cursed Omega had become the warrior of the moon. The night breeze brushed against her hair. She smiled softly, imagining Lucius's face when she told him what had happened, how the once feared Alpha Kyle had bowed before her, how the same people who had mocked her could not even meet her eyes now. But as she approached the small clearing, the air shifted. The scent of metal and strange wolves filled her nostrils. Her heart skipped. The cottage was surrounded by tall men in black and silver armor, their cloaks marked with the symbol of the crescent moon and crown, the banner of the Lycan King. Eva froze behind the trees, her pulse thundering. Soldiers, Lycans, powerful ones. Their presence made the ground feel heavy. Their energy hummed with dominance and command. They've found him, she thought, panic clawing through her chest. They've come for Lucius. Without thinking, she shifted, her silver wolf emerging, teeth bared, ready to fight. She crept closer, silent as the wind, her eyes darting between the soldiers. Her mind spun with fear. Why were they here? How did they find this place? Then she saw him. Lucius stood before the cottage, tall and calm, the wind moving through his dark hair. He wasn't fighting. He wasn't even surprised. He was waiting. The leader of the soldiers stepped forward and bowed low. His voice rang through the night, deep and respectful. "Your Majesty, the kingdom awaits your return." Eva stopped breathing. "Your Majesty." She blinked, thinking she heard wrong. But then the other soldiers dropped to one knee, one by one, their heads bowed to Lucius. "Your Majesty," they all echoed in unison, their voices carrying through the silent forest. Eva's wolf froze, her glowing eyes wide with disbelief. She shifted back into human form, her knees weak. "Majesty?" she whispered, staring at Lucius. What is going on?" Lucius turned slowly, his golden eyes meeting hers. There was a storm of emotion in them. Sadness, guilt, love. "Eva," he said softly, stepping toward her. "I was going to tell you, but not like this." She took a step back, shaking her head. "Tell me what?" "That the man I loved, the man who saved me, is the Lycan King?" Her voice trembled. "The one every pack fears?" Lucius's jaw tightened. "Yes." The world around her spun. She remembered the power in his eyes, the strength in his presence, the calm authority that always made others bow without realizing why. It all made sense now. Every mystery, every glance, every quiet moment he had looked at her as if he were guarding something far bigger than himself. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered again, tears stinging her eyes. Was everything a lie? He reached for her hand, his voice soft, filled with pain. "No, Eva. I never lied about what mattered. I just wanted you to love the man, not the monster people believe I am." Eva's lips trembled. "Why?" She stepped closer, her voice gentle but trembling. "Lucius." "What happened?" He let out a breath, his eyes distant. "My chosen mate. I trusted her with everything, my heart, my crown, my life. But power changes people, Eva. She wanted to rule alone. When she realized I would never become the king she could control, she tried to poison me, and nearly succeeded." Eva covered her mouth, horrified. "Oh, Lucius. I lost faith in everyone," he continued. "In love, in loyalty, in the moon goddess herself. So I disappeared. I left the palace behind and lived like a commoner. I built that cottage and watched the world quietly, until I found you." "Me?" Eva asked softly, tears glistening in her eyes. He nodded, his gaze steady. "Yes, I saw you long before you knew me. I watched you walk through pain and shame, yet still show kindness when no one deserved it. I saw strength in you that others mocked. I saw fire hidden behind your brokenness. And I thought, maybe the goddess sent you to show me there's still light in this world." Eva's tears fell freely now. "And you never told me because—" He stepped closer, cupping her cheek gently. "Because if you had known who I was, you would have looked at me with fear, not love. You would have bowed instead of smiled. You would have loved my crown, not my scar." Eva's heart twisted painfully. She looked up at him, her king, her mate, and saw not power, but a man still carrying wounds deeper than flesh. She placed her hand over his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "I don't care about the crown," she whispered. "I care about you, the man who saw me when no one else did." Lucius exhaled shakily, pulling her into his arms. The soldiers averted their gaze, pretending not to see as their king held the woman he loved. When he finally pulled back, his tone shifted, softer, but with warning. "Eva, my world is not kind. The Lycan court will not accept you easily. To them you are a low-born omega, fragile, unfit to stand beside me." Eva's eyes hardened, glowing faintly. "Then I'll make them see who I am. I faced my pack and made them kneel. I can face your kingdom too. Lucius gave a small, sad smile. You remind me of the moon, Ava, gentle in light, fierce in shadow. She smiled faintly. And you remind me of the sun, distant, powerful, but still needing someone to rise with. For the first time, he laughed softly, the sound filled with relief and love. Then rise with me, he said, offering his hand. She took it. As they walked toward the line of soldiers, the forest seemed to glow with light. The warriors lowered their heads in respect as the Lycan King and his silver mate passed between them. But inside Eva's heart, a storm brewed, not of fear but of resolve. She had fought to prove herself once. She would do it again, for Lucius, for love, for the world that had called her cursed. The Lycan court rose like a fortress of silver and stone, its towers piercing the clouds, its banners fluttering with the symbol of the crescent moon and the roaring wolf. Eva had seen many things in her life, but never anything like this. The sheer strength of the place made her heart tighten, not from fear, but from awe. Soldiers lined both sides of the marble path as Lucius led her through the gates. The moment the guards saw him, they bowed low, fists crossed over their chests. The air trembled with reverence. But when their eyes slid to Eva, the small, quiet woman walking beside their king, the atmosphere change whispers spread like wildfire. Is that her? The king's chosen? She looks ordinary. An Omega? Impossible. Each word struck Eva like tiny arrows, but she lifted her chin higher. She had faced far worse than whispers. Lucius noticed the tension, his golden eyes darkening as he shot a warning glance around the hall. Anyone who disrespects my Luna disrespects me, he said quietly. The murmurs stopped instantly, but Ava touched his arm softly, shaking her head. Let them speak, she whispered. Respect isn't demanded, Lucius. It's earned. He turned to look at her, really look at her, and a slow smile spread across his face. The girl who once trembled at the sound of her own name now stood tall in a hall full of wolves, stronger than mountains. His pride in her was immeasurable. When they entered the throne hall, a hush swept through the vast room. The council of elders, the generals, and the noble families were all gathered. Their eyes flicked from the king to the mysterious woman by his side. Lucius stood before his throne, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. This is Eva, he announced, my chosen Luna, my mate, and the woman who carries my mark. A wave of murmurs erupted immediately. The high elder, a sharp-eyed man with silver hair, frowned. Your Majesty, with all due respect, she is not one of us, not of Lycan blood, not of noble birth. Another voice, rough and deep, added, She's an Omega, my king, the lowest of the low. You cannot bring her into the royal line. The people will rebel. The man who spoke stepped forward, General Osiris, the king's most trusted commander. Broad-shouldered and fierce, his eyes burned with loyalty and pride. Yet beneath that loyalty lay doubt. Forgive me, my lord, Osiris said, his voice steady. But this is not about insult. It is about balance. The Luna must represent the strength of the Lycans, the power of the moon. How can a broken Omega stand beside the king of beasts? The room was silent. Lucius's hand clenched at his side, but before he could speak, Ava took a quiet step forward. Her voice, though soft, carried like a breeze through the hall. Then let me prove it, she said. Every head turned toward her. She met Osiris's hard stare with calm defiance. If I cannot earn your respect, then I do not deserve this bond. But if I can, then you must honor the will of your king and the mark of the goddess. Osiris's eyes narrowed. You challenge the court? No, Eva said. I challenge myself. Test me however you wish. Strength, speed, endurance, wisdom. I will not hide behind a throne or a title. Let my actions speak louder than my blood. The council erupted with shocked whispers. No one, not even seasoned warriors, dared to speak that boldly in the presence of the king and his generals. Lucius turned to her slowly, his gaze full of pride and silent admiration. "Ava," he said softly, "you don't need to." She met his eyes and smiled faintly. "I do, my king. If I'm to be your Luna, I must stand beside you, not behind you." Something deep inside him stirred. The same courage that had made him fall for her now shone brighter than ever. He could feel it through their bond, the steady flame of her resolve. "Very well," Osiris said at last, his voice low but respectful. "If this is what you wish, I will grant it. At dawn, in the training grounds, you will fight me, and if you win, the court will bow to you as Luna." He turned to Lucius. "With your permission, my king." Lucius hesitated. His protective instinct screamed against it. But the pride in Eva's eyes silenced him. He nodded once. "So be it. But if any harm comes to her, Osiris, you will answer to me." Osiris bowed deeply. "As you command, my king." The room buzzed with energy. Some smirked in disbelief, others whispered that she had gone mad. Ava stood in the center, unflinching. She had fought her old pack. She had fought despair. She could fight this too. That night, as they stood on the palace balcony, the moonlight poured over them like silver water. The kingdom glittered below, vast and powerful. Lucius stood behind her, wrapping his arms gently around her waist. "You don't have to do this," he murmured. "You've already proven your worth to me." Eva turned to face him, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "But I need to prove it to myself. And to them. They see a weak Omega. I'll show them the strength of the moon itself." He looked at her for a long moment, then cupped her face tenderly. "You have the heart of a queen," he whispered. "And you have the faith of a king," she replied softly. He smiled. "Then tomorrow, the moon shall witness what the goddess already knows. That you are mine, not by pity or by mark, but by destiny." She rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. The same heart that had once been broken by betrayal now beat with renewed life, because of her. Outside, the palace bell struck midnight. The wind carried the sound far into the mountains, where the training grounds awaited dawn's first light. Eva closed her eyes, breathing deeply. Tomorrow would not just be a test of strength. It would be the day the world saw who she truly was. Not an Omega, not a shadow, but a Luna worthy of the crown. The dawn broke like fire over the Lycan mountains, staining the sky in shades of red and gold. The entire kingdom stirred with anticipation. Bells tolled from the watchtowers, calling every warrior, every elder, and every noble to the grand training arena, a massive ring of stone and sand where countless battles had been fought, but none like the one that would unfold today. Eva stood at the center of the field, her hair glinting under the sun, her eyes calm yet fierce. Her palms were slightly trembling, not from fear, but from the energy coursing through her veins. She could feel the whispers of the crowd. Thousands of Lycans gathered to witness what they believed was madness. She'll be crushed in minutes. She's no match for General Osiris. Poor thing. The king should have stopped her. But Ava didn't let their words pierce her. She had been mocked all her life. She had faced worse. And today, she would show them that even the most broken soul could rise beyond limits. At the far end of the arena, General Osiris stepped forward, a towering warrior with scars crisscrossing his bronze skin and eyes as sharp as blades. His armor gleamed like iron under the sun. He was known as the Iron Wolf, undefeated in battle, protector of the king. His presence alone commanded silence. Lucius sat upon the royal dais, his face unreadable. Only Eva could feel the turmoil behind those golden eyes. His wolf howled within him, restless and protective, but he had promised not to interfere. This was her fight. Osiris drew his sword and saluted the king before lowering his weapon. "With your permission, my lord," he said. Lucius gave a single nod. "Begin." The air grew heavy. The crowd held its breath. Osiris turned to Eva, his voice deep and steady. "You are brave, Luna. Foolish, perhaps, but brave. I respect that, but know this, I will not hold back. If you wish to earn our respect, you must take it by strength." Eva smiled faintly. "Then strike with all your might, General. I didn't come here for mercy." With a growl, Osiris lunged forward. His speed was blinding, his movements precise. The first blow came like a thunderclap, his sword meeting Eva's blade with a force that sent ripples through the ground. She staggered back but didn't fall. She met his next strike, sparks flying as steel kissed steel. The crowd gasped. She was holding her ground. Lucius leaned forward, his heart pounding. The woman who once trembled under insults now danced with the fiercest warrior in the realm. Blow after blow, the battle intensified. Osiris moved like a storm, relentless and brutal, while Eva flowed like water, reading his movements, dodging just enough to survive. Sweat glistened on her brow, her breath coming sharp and fast, but she refused to falter. "You fight with heart," Osiris said between strikes, "but heart alone cannot win wars." Eva spun away from his blade, landing a swift kick that made the general stumble. "Then it's a good thing I'm not fighting for war," she said, panting. "I'm fighting for love, and love has no limit." Lucius watched, his chest tightened with emotion. Every time she moved, he saw the echo of her journey, from the girl who wanted to die on a cliff to the Luna standing unshaken before an army. With a roar, Osiris shifted, his massive iron-gray wolf erupting from his form in a flash of energy. The crowd roared. "The Iron Wolf!" they shouted. Eva took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment. Light shimmered around her as she shifted. Her silver wolf emerged, radiant, graceful. The arena went silent. The two wolves faced each other, one forged in battle, one reborn in courage. Then, they clashed. The sound of their battle echoed through the valley, claws slashing, teeth flashing, the ground trembling under their weight. Dust rose like storm clouds as they circled, lunged, and collided again and again. Osiris's wolf was powerful, but Eva's movements were fluid, unpredictable. She darted under his strikes, countering with sharp, precise blows. Time blurred, hours passed. The sun climbed high, then began to fall. Still neither yielded. Lucius's knuckles whitened as he gripped the armrest of his throne. "Hold on, my love," he whispered. Through their bond, he could feel her pain, every bruise, every heartbeat, but also her unshakable resolve. Finally, as the last rays of sunlight touched the horizon, Osiris lunged, jaws wide, aiming for her neck. Eva ducked under him, twisting with the grace of a dancer, and slammed into his side with all her strength. The iron wolf hit the ground with a crash that sent dust exploding into the air. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then, slowly, Osiris's wolf struggled, tried to rise, and stopped. He lowered his head, yielding. The arena erupted in cheers. Shouts and howls of awe filled the air. "Luna! Luna! Luna!" the crowd chanted, their voices rolling like thunder. Eva shifted back into her human form, covered in dust and blood but radiant with victory. Her silver hair clung to her face, her chest heaving with exhaustion. Osiris shifted too, falling to one knee before her. "Forgive my doubt," he said, bowing his head. "You are truly worthy to stand beside our king." Eva smiled faintly and extended her hand to him. "Rise, General. I didn't fight to defeat you. I fought to remind us all that blood shouldn't determine who is worthy." Lucius rose from his throne and descended into the arena, his long cloak brushing the sand. He reached her side, taking her hand as the cheers grew louder. His eyes glistened with pride and unspoken love. "You were never weak," he whispered. The world just wasn't ready for your strength. Eva turned to him, tears of joy filling her eyes. And you were never a monster. The world just didn't see your heart. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. The crowd knelt in reverence as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, leaving only the silver glow of the moon. Under its light, the Lycan King and his Luna stood side by side, equals bound by fate, battle, and love. The night sky shimmered like a sea of silver diamonds. The Lycan Kingdom was alive with celebration, drums thundering, torches blazing, laughter and song echoing across the hills. Wolves howled in unity, rejoicing in the rise of their new Luna, the girl who had once been scorned as the weakest Omega. But away from the crowd, where the night was quiet and soft, Eva and Lucius slipped into the royal garden, a place untouched by noise, bathed in moonlight. The white flowers glowed faintly, their petals swaying with the cool breeze. Eva's dress shimmered in the light, a soft silver gown that hugged her gently. Her hair flowed down her shoulders like liquid gold, and the moonlight made her eyes gleam with calm fire. She looked up at the sky, at the same moon where it all began, and her heart swelled. Lucius stepped behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Do you hear them?" he whispered, his voice deep and soft. "They cheer for their Luna." Eva smiled faintly. "I hear them, but my heart only hears you." He chuckled quietly, resting his chin on her shoulder. "You've changed everything, Eva. You healed a kingdom, and a king who had forgotten how to feel." She turned to face him, her hands finding his chest. "And you saved a girl who had forgotten how to live. When I stood at that cliff, I thought it was the end, but you found me." Lucius smiled. "The moon led me to you." They walked slowly toward the marble fountain, its waters glowing silver under the night sky. The sound of celebration was distant now, replaced by the gentle hum of the wind and the beating of two hearts that had become one. Lucius reached out, brushing his fingers across her cheek. "When I first saw you," he said softly, "I saw fire in your eyes, the kind that refuses to die even when the world tries to drown it. I knew then that you were not meant to bow to anyone." Eva's eyes glistened. "And yet I bowed to my pain for years." He smiled sadly, only to rise stronger. "You showed me what strength truly is, not in power or battle, but in forgiveness, in love, in rising when no one believes you can." Eva looked up at the moon. "I used to think I was cursed," she whispered, "but now I know I was only waiting for my destiny to find me." Lucius took her hand and guided her to the edge of the balcony that overlooked the entire kingdom. Thousands of lanterns floated in the air, released by the people below, each one glowing like a tiny star. "This kingdom," he said, "has seen countless battles, endless scars. But tonight, it begins anew, because of you." Eva turned to him, her heart overflowing. "No," she said gently, "because of us." He took her hand and kissed it. "I may be king," he whispered, "but before you I am only a man who found peace in the heart of a broken girl. You are my moon, Eva, my light in every dark night." Tears welled in her eyes as she looked up at his face. "Then let the moon be our witness," she whispered. He cupped her face, their foreheads touching. "Forever?" "Forever," she breathed. And then they kissed, slow, deep, and full of every promise they had ever made. The world around them faded. No court, no kingdom, no pain. Only them, two souls reborn under the same silver light. Above them, the moon hung bright and full, glowing as if blessing their union. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the faint echo of wolves howling in unison, a sound of loyalty, love, and eternal bond. Lucius held her close, whispering against her ear, "You are my heart, Eva." "And you," she murmured, "are my home." They stood there until dawn painted the sky with gold, the moon slowly fading into memory, but its promise remained. For the girl once mocked as weak was now queen beside the strongest of kings, and together they would rule not through fear, but through love. If you enjoyed Eva and Lucian's story, tell me where you are watching from, your heart-stopping moment, and your favorite character. We love to read your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any love story we create under the moonlight. Until the next story, keep howling at the moon.